Hey there, I'm Mike Rignetto. Welcome to the salon. This is Mental Floss video, and did you know that birds know how to start fires? This was a major problem in Australia during early 2016. Black kites and brown falcons were observed picking up burning twigs and dropping them into other spots, causing huge brush fires. This made it easier for them to hunt because small animals would come running out of the burning area. And that is the first of many facts about birds that I'm going to tell you about today. Probably the earliest flying bird that we know of is the Archaeopteryx, which lived during the Jurassic period about 150 million years ago. And its flight probably evolved from another activity, like gliding from trees or maybe even just running. Nowadays, there are between 9,000 and 10,000 known species of birds, depending upon which source you consult. There's a lot of birds to keep track of. Many birds have a nictitating membrane, a third eyelid that closes horizontally, not vertically. This really helps with birds who spend a lot of time underwater because it allows them to see while submerged. The common loon is one such bird that can see underwater, but they actually have red eyes. And some experts think that this feature helps them with underwater vision. I think it helps them look terrifying. Speaking of bird's eye views, the duck has about a 340-degree field of vision. Okay, moving on from eyes, let's talk about diet. Warblers eat up to 80% of their body weight every day. According to research on the brains of black-capped chickadees, they experience a bunch of neuron growth during October. Basically, when winter is around the corner, their brains free up a bunch of space and physically grow so that they can remember where they buried seeds and nuts. Some birds are klepto parasites. This means that they at least partially get their food by stealing it from the mouths of other animals. An example would be a gull swooping down and stealing food from a sea otter. And before you get judgy, I would wager that either you or some of your best friends are also kleptoparasites, especially if there are fries around. You may have noticed that I said gull and not seagull a moment ago, and that's because there's no such thing as a seagull. And there are about 44 different species of gulls, but they all have names other than seagull, like California gull, herring gull, and so on. Similarly, there is no such thing as a seahawk. Sorry, Seahawks fans. The term is usually used to reference either an osprey or a skua. You probably won't catch any true bird nerds talking about seahawks unless they're tossing a pigskin. And speaking of hawks, they can see things that we can't. Red-tailed hawks have unique receptor cells, which make it so that they can see more contrast between colors than humans can. They can even see into the ultraviolet range. Blue jays have the ability to imitate hawks, like the red-shouldered hawk. Experts aren't sure why they do this, but it might be to warn each other about a bird of prey's presence or to throw off other animals. Lots of birds have a strange and interesting quirks. Canyon wrens build little patios outside of their nests. We don't know exactly why, but they pile up little rocks around the opening of a rock crevice with a little nest inside. Make a little patio. The sociable weaver makes an even weirder nest. They're giant and sort of look like hanging haystacks. They have multiple entrances and chambers. It's basically like a big apartment complex containing anywhere between 10 and 400 weavers. Sounds like a bird reality TV show just waiting to happen. And speaking of nests, honey-guide birds are dying to get inside bee nests because they like to eat the wax inside. But to do that, they lead humans to the nests because they know humans will liberate that sweet, sweet honey. Speaking of the birds and the bees, there are birds that are known as bee eaters. In order to prevent injury, they hit their prey on a rock before eating it, separating the stinger from the edible part, romance. In 1995, there was a study conducted about European white storks. It turns out that 40% of young white storks leave their nest and set up shop with a different set of parents. This is especially funny considering that storks are the ones mythically delivering babies. Sounds like they need to keep track of their own first and foremost. The world's largest bird is the the ostrich. It is also very strong. An ostrich kick can kill a lion. On the other end of the spectrum, the bee hummingbird, which is about 2 inches long and lighter than a dime. Speaking of impressive units of measurement, American white pelicans can hold around 3 gallons in their bills. The Gentoo penguin, which is the fastest breed of penguin, can swim at 22 miles per hour. Penguin colonies can contain up to 1,000 birds, except for a couple breeds which prefer smaller groups. And now imagine 1,000 penguins, then add 600, then turn those penguins into lemmings. That's how many lemmings adult snow owls eat every single year. 3 to 5 every single day. And yet, according to Guinness World Records, the cassowary is actually the most dangerous bird. Some of its terrifying features: claws, 30-mile-per-hour speed, and the ability to leap 7 feet straight up. The hoatzin sounds pretty scary too. They're primarily herbivores, but the babies have claws on their wings, which are mostly used by chicks to cling onto trees. Okay, let's talk about some less scary bird habits. The female great blue heron spends 3 days to 2 weeks building a nest. She weaves it out of sticks, twigs, and other material which is presented to her by a male great blue heron. You know what they say? The couple that nests together is best together. Puck the blue parakeet has the Guinness World Record for the most vocabulary words learned by a bird, with 1,728 words. Woodpeckers hit their heads up against trees a lot, so they need to build some mechanisms to prevent bird brain damage. They have a few, including a hyoid, which is a bone that runs through their tongue and all the way around their skull, providing extra protection. Birds hate the smell of methylanthranilate, which is what's used in Kool-Aid to make it taste like grape. In 2004, this flavoring was sprayed all around O'Hare International Airport in Chicago to keep birds away from the planes. Oh yeah! There's a breed of crane known as the demoiselle crane, and they were supposedly named by Marie Antoinette after a word meaning young lady, because she viewed the cranes as delicate and feminine. Speaking of birds and etymology, the term sniper comes from a bird, the snipe. These birds are very evasive and difficult to hunt, so the term was given to qualified target marksmen. And as you most likely would have assumed, researchers have studied divorce rates among birds. Some interesting findings: 91% of mallard marriages last, 95% of swan marriages survive, and a mere 1% of flamingo marriages last. Are you thinking about flamingo divorce court now? Because I am. But arguably, no divorce rate is more impressive than flying 7,200 miles in 8 days. And that's exactly what a bar-tailed godwit did in 2008, journeying all the way from Alaska to New Zealand without ever stopping to rest or eat. That was the furthest known journey by a bird, but tons of birds travel miles and miles. And you might wonder what they do along the way. Well, some birds eat live snails and then poop them out in other locations where the snails land, still alive, and then go on with their snail lives. Some experts believe that this is how there are similar snails on multiple continents. Roadrunners have an interesting habit, though nothing like pooping out live snails. They like to sunbathe after cold desert nights. They'll even ruffle and raise the feathers on their back so that the sun hits the skin underneath. Okay, back to the flamingo for a second. In 2009, Madison, Wisconsin chose their city bird, the plastic pink flamingo. We have state birds in addition to city birds as well, and the most common one is the northern cardinal, which represents 7 states: Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, North Carolina, Ohio, Virginia, and West Virginia. However, that is nothing compared to Australia, though. There are 600 places named after the emu. That's a lot of places named after the emu. Mozart was a famous bird fan. He had a pet starling, which he taught to sing, and then he would transcribe the songs. It's kind of weird, but you know, they didn't have Mental Floss list show videos to keep them busy back in the 1780s. Okay, let's finish up with a few more cool traits unique to bird breeds, like the Toucan Bill, which actually acts as a sort of radiator, warming and cooling the bird. It releases heat through blood in the bill when it's hot outside, and when it's cold, blood vessels in the beak constrict, helping to keep the toucan warm. Peacocks also have a defining feature: their colorful feathers, and it's microscopic crystal-like structures in those feathers that make them so beautiful. These crystals reflect light in a certain way, making the colors particularly striking. Never to be outdone, parrots also have special feathers. There's a pigment on their feathers that's resistant to certain types of bacteria, so they actually protect the birds. Finally, I return to the salon to tell you that Hollywood is lying to you about birds. If you listen closely, you can hear kookaburra sounds in tons of movies. The only problem is that the bird only lives in Australia, but according to films, they're on tons of different continents, like Africa in Airplane, or the Americas in The Lost World Jurassic Park. Even weirder, in the 1964 Flipper TV series, the dolphin's voice was actually a kookaburra sound. Thanks for watching a Mental Floss video, which is made with the help of these very nice people. Let me know your favorite bird in the comments. I think mine might be big, but I also do some work with PBS, so that's probably no surprise. Also, don't forget to be awesome.